Welcome to From the Cold Corner, a podcast devoted to those impacting the cold food and beverage supply chain. I'm Michael Costa, editor-in-chief of Refrigerated and Frozen Foods magazine, and today our guest is Lauren Edmonds, newly elected president of the Refrigerated Foods Association, or RFA, and vice president of R&D and marketing for her company, St. Clair Foods. Welcome to the Cold Corner, Lauren.
Thanks, Michael. I'm happy to be here.
And today we'll focus on what the RFA has planned this year and also take a look back at refrigerated food sales during the pandemic. While frozen food sales received a lot of attention for its record-breaking numbers in 2020, not many people know that refrigerated foods actually outsold frozen foods last year, with $82 billion compared to $67 billion for frozen, according to Nielsen. And Lauren, before we start, can you give our audience some background on the RFA in case they're not familiar with it, and how the organization fits into the cold chain?
Sure. So the RFA was founded in 1980. We were originally called the Salad Manufacturers Association, and our original mission of the organization was for salad manufacturers to come together, share experiences, topics in the industry, trends, challenges they were facing, whether it was in production or in the sales sector, anything pertaining to the industry that they could help each other out with. As our membership grew and our products evolved, we changed the name from the Salad Manufacturers Association to the Refrigerated Foods Association. Our product lines had grown from simply deli salads to include other things like side dishes and desserts and dips and dressings, etc. So the makeup of our organization now, we have our manufacturing members and then also our associate members. Our manufacturing members produce our items that are value added, ready to eat, chilled salads, like I mentioned before. A lot of these products require special handling and also have a limited shelf life. Our associate members support the manufacturing members. They supply our members with things like ingredients, equipment, packaging, services, and they really work as our partners to ensure safety and the efficiency throughout the cold chain. The RFA focuses heavily on technical and the food safety side of our businesses. It's imperative for our manufacturers to know the latest regulations, best safety practices for the refrigerated foods industry, from labeling to sanitation and safety protocols, pathogen control, and then followed by safely shipping our products to the end user. We have a technical committee on the RFA that works very hard to support our members with the latest technology and any information that our manufacturers need to know to maintain the integrity of the cold chain while safely producing and distributing our foods.
Okay. And how long have you been a member of the RFA? And can you tell us a little bit about your recent election as president?
Yeah, my company, St. Clair Foods, is one of the RFA's founding members. My father, Oscar Edmonds, was one of the original 12 manufacturers who gathered in Savannah, Georgia, back in 1980, and they discussed the formation of this brand new association. So St. Clair has been a member for 41 years and counting. We're really proud to be a member for that long. I can't tell you, it's such an honor to be serving as president for the next 2 years. I'm so excited about it. I've served on the board of directors for 7 years and on the executive committee now for about 4 years. And I've seen so many changes in the industry over the years and to the RFA as I've been a member, especially during this past year, of course. But one thing's really remained the same, and that's our commitment to keeping our members informed on all things related to the industry and maintaining a sense of networking. The RFA truly is a family, and I want to see those elements remain strong and flourish because they really are the cornerstones of the RFA.
And speaking of this past year, what were some of the major changes in the refrigerated foods industry as a result of the pandemic?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that there was a huge shift in where consumers were eating their meals, especially in the beginning. People were cooking more, eating more meals at home. There was an immediate demand for ready-to-eat fresh foods, such as the refrigerated foods that many of our members were already making. Grocery and retail stores, as we all know, skyrocketed, while restaurants were really shuttered, left barely hanging on in some places. This RFA members I've talked to recently about this were saying that they really could not produce products fast enough to fill the retail market. However, part of the challenge was that the distribution pipeline was really struggling in a crisis of its own. There was a massive shortage of trucks and of drivers, and a lot of trucks were being used to transport things like paper goods. As we all remember, there was a huge run on toilet paper and other products like that. So they were filling in those gaps, and we were struggling to fill trucks with our food products. And so not having these trucks to fill, and then also when we finally would be able to fill these orders, you've got trucks waiting in long lines because of the new protocols for COVID. Our truck drivers had to answer questionnaires, get temperature checks. Some weren't allowed in the building to unload their products. So these wait times were creating very long lines getting into distribution centers and into grocery stores. And then meanwhile, back in the manufacturing front at our production facilities, we're scrambling to buy enough PPP gear, reorganizing our facilities to promote social distancing, putting new protocols in place in order to provide our employees with a safe environment to work in. Fortunately for us, our industry already, we're very familiar with these types of sanitary and safety protocols or sanitation protocols. And so adding these additional COVID protocols, while very challenging, was not completely foreign to us or to our employees. And our associate members, our ingredient suppliers and packaging suppliers, were having the same issues implementing these new practices. Everything was just new, and we were learning every day different things, different changes, different challenges. And as this went on, the distribution for our national and global supply of ingredients and other supplies was being disrupted. It's been, even to this day, it's still increasingly difficult to buy and source ingredients as costs are going up. Our lead times have doubled or tripled in some cases, making it difficult for us to schedule production. So all of this is just a perfect storm for increasing costs that I think, unfortunately, is going to eventually be passed on to the consumer.
And
And
that's
then
interesting. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
that's okay. That's okay. I would say the last thing that has been the biggest challenge for us has been with employment. When the pandemic first began, of course, everything from contact tracing to quarantining, all of those protocols were being implemented. And we would have many people absent from work. And because either a family member tested positive or someone was exposed to COVID, depending on what was going on, we were having to fill the gaps where these people weren't here. And it wasn't just a day or two. As you know, the quarantine was 10, sometimes 14 days, especially in the beginning when there was so much unknown. And our industry, while we are highly automated in some areas, we have a lot of products that are still very much hands-on. And we need those people to fill those positions. And we simply did not have the manpower to do it. So we were scrambling there for a while. At the height of the pandemic, I think we had probably and I'm speaking for St. Clair, we had probably about 30% of our workforce out at one time. And then later on in the pandemic, it sort of shifted because unemployment benefits had been extended, stimulus packages were being sent out, and we were having problems hiring people, finding people to work, and still are to this day. And I've talked to several other of our RFA members, and they're dealing with the same issues. It's an ongoing problem.
Okay. And you mentioned there's a shortage or it's difficult to get certain ingredients. What ingredients are difficult to get a hold of right now?
Well, for instance, it sounds silly, but cornstarch. Cornstarch has been difficult to get. And also, the market's just been so unstable in the oil market. We We book our oil for mayonnaise products since we're heavy on the mayonnaise products, and the costs are skyrocketing. Everything is just either it's an ingredient that we're purchasing that's being difficult to get, or if we have a supplier who's making a specific ingredient, they're having difficulty getting one of their ingredients. So it's just a constant snowball effect that's affecting the entire industry.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. And other than the pandemic, what factors do you think helped contribute to the spike in refrigerated food sales? And what is the RFA or the industry as a whole doing to sort of keep that momentum going this year?
That's a tough question because I do think that the pandemic was one of the major driving factors for our increase in sales. Um, However, our consumers have always demonstrated a need for and a demand for fresh products, such as the ones that we produce. And even prior to the pandemic, we were seeing an increase in deli salad sales. We were seeing an increase in the number of meals eaten out at restaurants. And anything that was convenient, grab and go, whether it be from a restaurant or from a grocery store, our products that we were producing were seeing these increases because, as you remember, we were on the go all the time. Can you remember when that was happening? We were rushing home from work and cooking was getting put on the back burner, and anything that was convenient or fresh or ready to go was what was being bought at that time. So the convenience element has always been important to our consumer, and the refrigerated foods industry has always stayed ahead of that curve with new and innovative flavors, coming up with new products that suit our needs as busy on the go consumers. And of course, all of the trends that come along, whether it's gluten free or plant based or healthier, none of those trends are going away anytime soon. And the refrigerated foods industry is always innovating and coming out with new flavors to fill those gaps. As you said, there was a huge increase in the beginning of the pandemic of frozen foods. But I think that was partly due to the fact that we saw a huge panic in the grocery stores. People were worried that they couldn't go to grocery stores as often as they were normally able to, and they started stockpiling and putting things in their freezer. But I do think as the pandemic went on, people were ready for variety. They were tired of cooking. They wanted more variety in their diets. They wanted different products, but they still wanted that convenience for prepared foods. And even if it was just a component of their meal, people were turning to refrigerated prepared foods for a component and not necessarily cooking an entire meal. So dinner had become a combination of a pre-made meal and a homemade meal. And as that took hold, I think it just became apparent that the refrigerated foods was stepping up with these new innovative flavors and products and convenience for our consumers.
Yeah, I've noticed there are a few companies, some big names that have not normally associated with prepared foods and refrigerated foods that are now coming out with entire meal trays that you can buy at the deli, which, and their selling point is not only is it take it and make it at home and you're all set for your whole family, but it takes the onus on labor off in the prepared foods deli and a grocery store as well. So I'm curious to see
Absolutely.
if that will continue as we get further out of the pandemic and the labor won't be so much of an issue.
I think you're
Where
exactly right, and I think that's true for restaurants too. Since a lot of restaurant workers were furloughed or laid off, they were looking. Restaurant owners were looking how can they still have foods to sell when they don't have people to make the foods. So they were turning to a lot of foods like we make as an industry to fill those gaps just so they could stay alive.
And switching back to the RFA for a second, what are some of the plans that you have for 2021? I know we're still emerging from the pandemic and into 2022. And your annual conference, I believe, will be in person next year, correct?
Yes, and we are so excited about it. I am really looking forward to the rest of 2021 and into 2022. I'm so proud of how the Refrigerated Foods Association has met the needs of our members during this time. We have continued to offer our quality program that we always do. We offer webinars and seminars and bulletins, newsletters. We've kept our members engaged with timely topics. As soon as the pandemic hit, of course, we started issuing a bulletin that was daily about COVID updates. It included very detailed updates on what our members needed to know, how things were changing every day, how the virus was changing every day, and how it affected all of our businesses. As the pandemic went on, that need decreased just a little bit to where we didn't really need to send it out daily, but we're still sending it out weekly as an update to our members. And it's been a really helpful piece of information for our members to stay updated and get the information they need to keep going as a business. And then we're also offering lots of unique experience, or we have offered lots of unique experiences this year. Since we haven't been able to meet in person, we've pivoted beautifully into the virtual world, as everyone has. One of our wonderful experiences at our conference normally is our CEO sessions. And this is where our suppliers get to sit down for a few minutes with the key decision makers of the manufacturing companies and meet where they normally wouldn't be able to. So we didn't get to meet in person this year, obviously, but we decided to do it virtually, and it was so well received by our members, and we were so excited to have it. We also turned it into a fundraiser because, unfortunately, with not having our conference this year, we weren't able to keep up with our revenue like we normally would have. So this was a great opportunity, and our suppliers bid on these meetings with the CEO sessions and with the decision makers. So it turned into not only a great networking opportunity, but also a wonderful way to raise money for the RFA in a year that's been really challenging for us. And then we also offer our webcasts that we do quarterly. And this year, there's been a lot more information to send out. So we increased that to once a month. And our topics vary. Of course, they've been heavy on COVID, but also just anything that pertains to our membership and what our industry needs as far as regulatory information on sanitation practices, food safety culture, traceability, trends. We have so many great speakers during these webcasts. It's such a wonderful benefit to our members, and it's actually no extra charge. So members have this as a member benefit with their membership to the RFA. And then we're also going to offer a virtual symposium in the fall, probably in September or October. Normally we have an in-person fall symposium, but we did not have that last year, nor are we going to have it this year. We usually travel to another city. We take tours of laboratories or of food facilities, depending on where we are. We have excellent speakers on all sorts of technical topics. And this year we're doing that virtually again as we did last year. So I'm really excited about that as well. And then, as you said, yes, we are planning our in-person conference in February of 2022. I cannot wait. It's going to be at the Ritz-Carlton in Amelia Island, Florida. This will be our 41st conference. And next month, our conference committee meeting will start the planning process and pin down all the details for our big reunion event. We're going to have a host of wonderful speakers, experts in the industry, and lots of wonderful networking and social events, a great golf tournament that we have every year, a full exhibition in the exhibit hall, and then, of course, our exclusive one-on-one CEO sessions. Can't forget that. So looking forward to that. I cannot wait to see everyone in person.
And your keynote speaker last February was Joe Theismann.
Yes.
Do you have a keynote speaker for this conference?
You put me on the spot.
It might be too far out.
We do have some most of our speakers nailed down because we skipped this past year in person. We shifted a lot of the speakers that we had for this past year to next year. But I can't think of the name right off the top of my head. But we do have several of those speakers nailed down already. I know it's going to be wonderful.
Okay, great. And let's switch gears to your own company, St. Clair Foods. Can you tell our audience what products St. Clair makes and who your target audience is?
Sure. At St. Clair Foods, we produce a wide array of ready to eat refrigerated deli salads. We also have a frozen side dish line. We have a side dish line as well as an entree line of frozen foods. Anything from boil and bag products to casseroles baked in a pan. We produce about 50 million pounds of potato products a year, and potato salad is our number one item. Our primary customers are small to medium-sized chain restaurants, which we sell through major distributors. And then we also have made a niche for ourselves in the custom formulation side of that, also for restaurants, and then also for some private label retail. And the custom formulation for restaurants is really where we see primarily most of our growth. The private retail side of our business has grown significantly over the past few years, but also this past year because of COVID and restaurants being shuttered, of course. And then we also sell through QVC, which is the shopping channel. And I've been the on air guest on QVC for about 16 years now.
Whoa.
And yeah, and we sell our frozen side dishes. Our biggest items that we sell are during the holidays, things like cornbread dressing, sweet potato casserole, anything that goes with your turkey or your ham or your prime rib. And it's been such a fun experience being able to go on live TV and sell our products.
And because food service is a focus of your company, and they were, as we talked earlier, pretty much shuttered for 2020, how were you able to switch St. Clair into other channels last year while food service was getting its feet back?
Well, I must say it was heartbreaking to watch as the restaurants closed and we're just kind of left in the dust. We have a lot of customers who are local, small mom and pop restaurants, small chains, single location restaurants, convenience stores, and they were really hit hard by this. And we continue to work with them and work with our distributors to keep that pipeline filled as much as possible to help them transition. They were transitioning to a lot of to-go orders, to outdoor seating, as we all know, changing their restaurants physically to keep up and just try to stay open. And unfortunately, some of them didn't survive, and that really breaks my heart. St. Clair Foods is very fortunate in that many of our customers and the places we sell to were already set up for takeout, for to go. We sell to a lot of fast casual restaurants, to delis, barbecue joints. So these restaurants were able to pivot very quickly when the pandemic hit. When the indoor seating was closed, they were able to start up their to-go orders and really bump that up. And so we felt very fortunate and very grateful that we had those customers set up already. And then, of course, I would say just regionally, we live in the South where it's a little bit warmer outside. Even in the winter months, our weather lends itself to sitting outside. So we didn't slow down as much as a lot of other areas in the nation, and we feel very fortunate about that because we were very uncertain what was going to happen in our food service sector in the months of March and April, particularly when everything just dropped off. The retail side of our business, as you can imagine, exploded, as did for many of our other RFA members. We picked up a lot of new business in our private label retail sector. And then a lot of our customers that already existed were asking us for new products. Their growth was going through the roof. As you probably recall, grocery store shelves were empty, and it wasn't just toilet paper, it was everything. I've never seen anything like it. It was truly a phenomenon. And we couldn't produce enough fast enough. Our members, the RFA, nobody could produce fast enough to fill this retail pipeline. And as the year went on, everything sort of evened out a little bit more, but the retail business has really stuck and grown throughout the year, which has been a surprise for us.
That's great. So when food service comes back, you'll have two thriving channels.
Yes, yes. And it's already starting to come back. It really has. Like I said, we're very fortunate that we sell to restaurants that have been able to pivot really quickly during this pandemic.
And then what is in store for St. Clair this year or, early next year as far as new products or any new distribution agreements, anything like that?
Well, first of all, internally, we just finished the largest expansion we've ever done. We redid our potato processing and cooking line.
Oh,
We've automated the entire cook system. We're utilizing robotics, automatic conveyance systems, and everything is integrated and controlled centrally or remotely. So this is going to drastically increase our capacity for cooking potatoes. And then alongside that, we've also expanded our production footprint. So we're continuing to increase our capacity and focusing on automation, especially in packaging. And that's actually with the help of a lot of our fellow RFA members. We do have a few products coming out, both in our food service and retail markets. Like I said, most of our growth comes from that custom formulation for either restaurants or established retail brands. And as restaurants have been opening up more and more across the country, just our current products continue to see an increase in sales as people become more confident about eating out.
okay. And you've answered all my questions. Was there anything you wanted to add or something that I missed?
Well, first off, I'd just like to say thank you for having me. It was an honor to represent the RFA and St. Clair Foods in the podcast. And I guess if I wanted to add anything, I would just say, you really learn a lot about yourself in times of uncertainty. You learn how you respond in crisis. You learn how to navigate through your thoughts, your emotions, and your fears. And I think the same goes for an organization like the RFA. From the beginning of the pandemic, there were so many questions, so many unanswered questions. And our members and our staff came together as only the RFA could, really like a family. And we kept our members on the forefront of all the changes that were happening. We navigated through many months of changing mandates, company policies, COVID practices, protocols, and really new ways to connect and share information, like Zoom, for instance.
Right.
But it became very, it became very clear to me that our members have continued to see the value in the RFA, and perhaps now more than ever. And their support, the member support for the RFA, it's been immeasurable over the past year. I can't say enough about it. And it makes me excited about the future of the RFA, and I feel really honored to be a part of its leadership moving forward.
Okay. Well, thanks again for joining us, Lauren.
Thanks, Michael.
And thanks to you, our listeners. If you have any comments or questions, you can contact me via email at costam@bnpmedia.com. Also, if you have any ideas for a future podcast or any topics, please let me know. Until next time, this is Michael Costa from the Cold Corner.